Today on the Kuvio Caller.
We are all excelling on the same playing field, and it is beautiful, and it is also benefiting the company. Yeah. I don't know how it benefits the company if you are low-key envious of another person's talent.
I chat with Rhonda Edwards, Kuvio's Director of Operations, on how unique talents on a team can complement each other and create something really amazing. So, welcome to episode 3 of the podcast. I'm Joseph Young. I'm the founder of Kuvio Creative, and with me today is Rhonda Edwards, our Director of Operations. Say hi, Rhonda.
So excited to be here.
I'm so excited to talk to you. Just like Kieran, Rhonda and I have been talking for twice a week, actually, for 2.5 years plus now, right? And we just dive into all things Kuvio, and Rhonda is just the penultimate strategist when it comes to all things operations. I constantly picture you as sitting in the middle of a room with just thousands upon thousands of Postit Notes on every surface.
Absolutely,
every. Is that still accurate?
That is still very accurate. Like, I moved and there were no Postits, and then first week at work, Postits on the wall, Postits on the table, Postits on the kitchen counter, and it works. I mean, it's
so crazy. It's so different from the way that I think, which is I think kind of the subject of what we're going to be talking about. Is I am very much this pie in the sky, everything is just going to happen when it happens, pivot on a dime kind of person, which is good in some cases and the most horrible thing that anybody could ever do in other cases. And so before Rhonda joined Kuvio, we were just, oh my gosh, bouncing in every single direction and having no real direction and no projects being finished and no real just overall strategy of or ability to kind of coalesce all the 9,000 different ingredients of what it takes to start a startup. And Rhonda, that's what you've brought to Kuvio in your own amazing way. So first off, I want to say thank you for all the awesome things that you've done over the last 2.5 years, because you've really made Kuvio what it is today.
Thank you so much. And honestly, for me, the best part about being here on this team is being able to be yourself. So I am this way on the team, but this is me in life. I was a third grader with a plan. I knew what high school I wanted to go to. I knew what college I wanted to go to. I knew what I wanted to study. And, as is life, you have to pivot. And I thank you for that, because that's definitely helped me both in work and life. I came in super focused on the plan, what we were going to do this month, next year, 5 years from now. And you came in with these pivots. And I remember now it's good, it's fun, it's exciting, and it always happens exactly when it needs to happen. But I remember really struggling in the beginning to hey, this is what's going on, this is what's going on, and this is what's going on. I'm thinking we do this, and I would always feel like this is a real pivot. And we're just going to start tomorrow. Okay, cool. All right, got it. I mean, I could fit it into the plan for next month. No, next week. Okay, got it. Next iteration. Great. But I love it. Yeah. And it's made that is just as important as the plan. And
and that's what's so interesting, right? There's because you taught me exactly that as well, right? I was my whole life I've just kind of turned on a dime, right? Everywhere I've gone, and I've just been this sort of ball in a pinball machine, bouncing around in different. And sometimes it works because I'll take a risk that nobody will take, but all that means is that the risks that I do take I'll fail way more than a lot of people will fail, right? And so there has to be that moderative effect that for a business to actually succeed and to actually to actually work. And so the sort of push-pull relationship between me and you has and the sort of mutual respect on both sides of
Yeah.
both of those sides and the necessity of both of those sides, I think is one of the core engines that have made Kuvio what it is. It's just been fascinating to me. I mean, because now it's forced me to put the pivots that my gut tells me into an actual actionable plan, or have it something that is actually actionable. Otherwise, you push back, and you're not shy about pushing back, and you have every reason to push back. And then as long as I listen to you put your pushback, you know, you're 99.9% of the time right about that, right? And so that's just what's beautiful about it. And there's so many different subjects that we've done that with over the last 2.5 years. Oh my gosh, I can't even begin to list them out.
It's
But
funny that you say that, because literally you say that and all I'm having is like flashbacks of year one and you telling me, hey, let's do this, or what do you think about that? And me always requesting follow-up meeting, like, hey, can we just meet to plan this out really quick? Like, I have an outline, I just need to check with you. And how that evolves from, let's have a meeting, I just need to check with you, I have this outline and this plan, to us having the meeting about the pivot, like off the bat, and then me going off, creating the plan and executing the plan. Like, that's also a transition that happens, like, not with me, but also with team members at Kuvio.
so one interesting thing that I think will probably be a valid thing that kind of everybody experiences, and I don't know how it ends up working so well, but because we're such in that particular degree, right? Like the spectrum of planning versus just being a pinball, right? We're such polar opposites in just that particular thing, that you would think that when we talk, we would be talking past each other,
No.
and we don't, right? Like
And that's
we
never
like,
happened. Yeah.
and but somehow, you know, I feel like as I'm talking about things, I'm still just pinballing, right? And I'm like, well, maybe this, and how about this, and let me go up to a 90,000 foot level and talk about this crazy thing, and oh, I had this story that reminds me of this, and so on and so forth, right? And you kind of let me go through my 15 minutes of rant, and somehow every single time you actually get an actionable plan out of that, and it's always right. Like, how do you do that?
So your rants aren't rants for me. In the 15 minutes, there is a larger picture, right? But there are stories, there are things that you're noticing in the world, there are things that you're noticing within Kuvio, in the code. That is what the Postits are. It's, here's the
I
story, and it's
see.
like me taking the gist of that. Here is what you noticed in the code that has to do with photos of us. Here is what you've noticed through a separate meeting. And then literally at the end of my day, when I'm looking at these, it's like, oh, all of these things actually mean X. All right,
Wow.
let's make the plan.
So that is that basically the kind of core pattern is you're kind of taking down all of these ingredients from all these different angles, right? And it's not always just me, it's, you know, other meetings that we're in with
Yeah.
clients or meetings with other people in Kuvio. And then you just have, you know, maybe I was right all along. You're sitting in the middle of this, you know, room full of Post-it notes, and then you just kind of slowly turn, and then all of a sudden a pattern emerges from all of the ingredients, and you go, this is the direction that we should go, and these are the priorities, and these are
Yes.
the, that's fascinating.
And that's why the, sorry, go ahead.
That's such a beautiful talent that I will never ever in my life have.
No, but your talent is what you're great at as well, because what you do, I cannot do. It's the seeing all of the different pieces and putting them together and being able to vocalize them.
Yeah, but that's Kuvio, right? I mean, so that's what we've kind of grown into, that I think is the one of the core things that we have just done, whether it's on purpose or on accident. We've allowed everybody that has decided to come work with us to even pinball around themselves
Yes.
until they kind of discover what they actually enjoy doing that could also contribute to Kuvio as well, right? And
Agreed.
I mean, you hardly pinballed at all because you came in and were just immediately, you filled that sort of gap for us. But and others have pinballed at different levels. But the kind of core message there is that nobody should be hiring for a pre-written job description.
Right.
You can say, oh, I need a developer, or I need, this person who has this familiarity in X and Y and Z, and you got to have 5 years experience in this and 6 years experience in that, and all these kind of things, right? But what you're doing by sort of selecting for that and saying, look, this is the checkboxes that you need to fill, is ignoring the actual characteristics of the person
Right.
that is sitting in front of you. And so many people are passed over for exactly that reason, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm sure you have a billion stories in your past about places that you've worked at Kuvio that kind of go through that normal sort of traditional, more corporate way of trying to find talent and then trying to recruit and then trying to promote and all those kind of just weird activities that occur, right? Which are not weird because it's what everybody's doing, right? But for me now, having been at Kuvio for 3 years, it feels weird because it just feels like who would go about it in this way?
Terrible people, Joseph. I mean, you're absolutely correct in that is the way of the world. That is the way of business as it is currently being run for the majority of businesses. You're absolutely right. Before Kuvio, I worked at a different startup, and man, I really feel for people. Like, having worked there and now working here, I really feel for people. When I think about my experiences there, I think about like an afternoon meeting. Actually, no, I think about running to work at like 7 a.m. and staying there all day long and not leaving until either 6 or 7 and working weekends and really like working to the bone to do this thing that I hated and that was so bare minimum of who I am. Like I was a program coordinator, so the organization piece, like I had it. I love that, doing organizing. There were spreadsheets. It was cool. However, there was no say in the company. There was no real voice. I was like bottom of the totem pole, and you knew that. The way promotions worked over there, we had a meeting. All of us were called into a room, and they let us know their company plan and that there was one promotion happening in 6 months. And it was very like Hunger Games. Like it was very, so now I'm competing with my friends, I guess, work friends, to get this promotion. And they're not really telling me what this promotion entails except for the extra work. But I'm already working way more than 40 hours a week, like way past that. And no one there was doing what their talents would have dictated that they should have been doing.
Yeah. And I think you also told me that they didn't even make clear if this promotion came with a raise or not.
Yeah, there was also that. You did not know if it came with a raise, and there were 2 people in that meeting. So the position that I was in, the next promotion was in 6 months. There was a young woman who was more senior than I, and she had gotten her promotion in that meeting. And when we left the meeting, I was like, congratulations, oh my gosh, I'm so happy for you. She's like, I'm not really sure what this means. And my response to her was, you just got promoted. There's no way they didn't tell you, and you'll be getting a raise, and you will be getting this. She's like, no, I don't know. And like, as time unfolded, she still did not know. Like, she was getting more work, but they did not talk to her about pay. And she was meant, I guess, to wait until her next check to see. And I don't know how that panned out, but I did not like that at all.
Wow. You just wonder what the source of it is, right? Like what is it that makes the world tick like that?
Capitalism. Sorry. um, it has to be,
Yeah.
in my opinion. I mean,
So it reminds me of this tweet I saw a few days ago about somebody was commenting on the sort of trials of being an entrepreneur, and they were like, one of the things that you should know is if you become an entrepreneur, in order to get away from bosses, that is the antithesis of what's going to actually happen, because you're going to end up having more bosses than you ever thought of, because now you're going to have clients who are going to get to tell you what to do and you can't say no to them. You're going to have VCs or investors that get to tell you what to do because now they own you essentially, and you can't say no to them, and so you're going to be even in a worse position, but you better know what you've signed up for. And I'm like sitting there reading it and I'm like, that it just is not the way that it has to be. Like, what happened to the ability of people to treat talent and the sort of capitalistic exchange of money for talent as co-equal pieces of that seesaw, right? So at some point, money became like this thing that almost feels like or that so many people treat as much more powerful than the talent itself, and so they hang it over people's heads, and they get people to chase it, right? And that's the reason that VCs exist. That's the reason that crony capitalism exists, right? Like you're talking about,
right.
And it makes me wonder, like, if you didn't have that, right? If you had equal pay for equal work, if you had a realization that the person that is not, or that is sitting up on the penthouse of the 72nd floor of some crazy building in Philadelphia is no more or less of a human being than the person working in the basement of that same building.
Exactly. But do you think that that type of humility exists on a widespread playing field? Like
it should, and it bothers me why it doesn't, right? Because I'm reminded of the sort of power corrupts, but absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Yeah.
But why should it, right? Because there have been instances that I've kind of always noticed of some of the most major sort of leaders that people have gravitated to over the centuries, and it seems like the common thread that they all sort of figure out is that the most leadership-y thing that they could possibly do is to delegate any power that they amass by being a leader,
Right.
as much as possible to everybody else and away from them.
Yes.
And like use that power to lift everybody else up, because guess what happens? There's this feedback loop that happens, right? And then you actually become a leader, but so does everybody else around you in their own capacities.
Right.
And then suddenly all the things that you wanted in this journey that you've taken, in the things that you believe in, all of a sudden start happening because you actually have people that believe the same things that you do, but not because there are some crazy things that you believe. It's because you both hit on some common, more universal truth of just how the world should work, and I feel like I've always felt like I've looked at the especially the gigantic corporations like that, and I've always kind of felt that that's the missing piece, is that for some reason it's just so hard for some people to stop amassing money for the sake of amassing money.
You say this and I'm thinking, wow, my mind went very political when you said that. And I don't particularly know how we solve for that one. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't. The way that our government is set up, the way that our culture is set up, that may be a thing that is always a thing. Like there will always be those people. When I think about the impact that Kuvio has the potential to make on companies across the board, I feel like that impact will be felt most by the companies that come after us, not necessarily for the already billionaire founders. And I think
it's going to take generations, right?